You see, if you don't have that idea of a God who made the world and put his wisdom into it, then all you have is something like the pre-Christian, the pagan idea of a world that is just chaos. And if the world is just chaos, then there are no laws. Things just happen because the gods decide they feel like it or they don't feel like it. But only when you believe that a God who loves organization and order created the world in that way, then you can start to look for laws that describe that order. And that's actually what happened in history. And often most of those medieval and early modern people who were inventing modern science saw what they were doing as almost a kind of worship, as almost a kind of praise of the God who created this world. Christianity is also rational and logical in another way, and that is that it actually works. It practically works. For example, Christianity teaches values such as charity and forgiveness and mercy and the equal value of all human beings. And when we actually have a community that follows these kinds of values, everybody's life gets better. And so it actually makes sense. Although some of those teachings seem to be odd, like why should we care for the weak in society? Shouldn't we just let the weak look after themselves, and if they can't, they'll die and they'll stop being a drain on everybody else? That's logical, isn't it? But in fact, we know that none of us really wants to live in that kind of society, because maybe today I'm the strong, tomorrow I might be the weak. It makes so much more sense that we live in a society where we all care for those who are weak, so that all of us are looked after and all of us are able to live a good life. Now, that's what happens if people follow the teachings of Christ properly and faithfully. And of course, people who are called Christians have done horrible things in history. Okay, there's no denying that's happened. But that's not really what we're asking today. We're asking about whether the teaching of Christianity is logical, whether it makes sense. And I think that that's a very good reason to think that it does. So that's so much for how Christianity is logical and is reasonable. But there is another way in which it's kind of not logical. There's an important way in which Christianity is not so much far from logic. It's not so much the opposite of logic, but it actually raises our minds up beyond logic, because human logic is very limited, and our ways of thinking, although human thought is very rich and beautiful in so many different ways, and yet it's still limited. And we know that we are limited in our knowledge still, even in so many ways, even in the 21st century. Even in science, there are so many things that we still know that we don't know.